In this video, we're going to talk about how you can finally win the credit card game in 2025 based on everything I've learned and the exact system of steps that I've been using in my own life over the past 10 years. For me, winning the credit card game means that my wife and I get to travel for free or almost free by earning and then redeeming our credit card points very strategically. And those points allow us to fly in both business and economy class while staying in some really awesome hotels and resorts around the world in a bunch of different countries. But more importantly, with the system we use, we've also been able to save money, avoid credit card debt, and achieve 800 credit scores while still reaching a few other really cool life milestones along the way without stressing about a credit card use, which is something a lot of people out there do stress about. So to show you guys how we do all that, I basically broke down our system into 5 steps that I think really just simplify the confusing world of credit cards and start to unlock a whole world of travel that you otherwise might not be able to afford. And that's going to all start with step number 1 here, which is to understand something I call the earning hierarchy. The earning hierarchy is basically just the way that I look at prioritizing which credit cards to use in different situations to kind of just earn the maximum number of points back for every single dollar we spend. Earning points sounds easy enough, but if you're using the wrong credit cards and not prioritizing certain cards over others, then there is going to be a very good chance that you're missing out and leaving a ton of value out there on the table. Now, the earning hierarchy is all based around a concept called return on spend, where let's say I'm using a credit card that's earning 2x back on everything, like the Citi Double Cash. So if I spend $100, then that would give me 2x back, which is 200 points, and then 200 points redeemed at 1 cent per point is going to be worth at least $2 in value, which is obviously a 2% return on spend in this example. A card like the Double Cash is what we call a catch-all credit card, and catch-all cards are going to be great because you want to have something that's in your wallet that's going to be able to earn at least 1.5 to 2x back for miscellaneous spend. But these catch-all cards actually fall towards the bottom of the earning hierarchy because above that, there's also going to be credit cards that earn around 3 to 5x back in certain categories that might be better to use when you can. These are your high multiplier cards that you want to have for things like dining, groceries, gas, travel, and a few other categories like that. So when you're able to earn a higher return on spend in some of those areas of your budget where you probably spend a lot of money already, then what that's going to do is basically sort of help to accelerate the amount of credit card rewards you're earning. But above those two types of credit cards in the earning hierarchy are going to be sign-up bonus cards, because the return on spend with credit cards that have very good sign-up bonuses can be around 15 to 20% on the low end, or even as much as 40% or more depending on the bonus you're getting. For example, if you opened a card like the Citi Strata Premier that has a 75,000 point offer, which is worth $750 at a minimum 1 cent per point rate, and in order to get that bonus, you had to spend $4,000 in 3 months, then that is going to mean that you're effectively getting 18.75% back in value for that entire $4,000 minimum spend amount as you're working towards getting that bonus. 18.75% return on spend is going to easily beat any catch-all card or high multiplier card, and so that's why you see a lot of people who are very deep in the credit card game usually opening up several credit cards per year to get more and more sign-up bonuses. Now, if you have a business or anything like that, then you should also really try to think about the earning hierarchy for your business side of things as well on top of the personal spending. So business credit cards have some of the highest sign-up bonuses out there and a ton of business optimized multipliers, and getting those types of credit cards can really help you out with winning the whole credit card game a lot faster as well. Personally, what I like to do is have a good core credit card setup that's filled with both personal and business credit cards that maximize the highest spend categories in my budget. Plus, I also add in some other good catch-all credit cards for miscellaneous spend, and then when I come across a good sign-up bonus on a card that I like, I pretty much just go ahead and put all my spending on that one card until I hit the minimum spend requirement to earn that bonus. Again, because the math there usually just works out that my return on spend is the highest by doing that. Now, a quick tip here as you're thinking about the earning hierarchy and return on spend is that you might want to try focus on earning what we call flexible points currencies, especially if you're somebody who's really early on in the credit card game and you don't really know if you want to be on more of team cashback or team travel with points and miles. That's because flexible points can be converted into either cashback or travel, so they just give you a ton of options. And some examples of this would be Chase Ultimate Rewards, Amex Membership Rewards, Build Points, Capital One Miles, and Citi Thank You Points. And the really cool trick here is that if you redeem these points for travel, then your return on spend number can actually increase. So before I said the 75,000 point offer on the Citi Strata Premier was worth $750 towards something like cashback at 1 cent per point, and that was an 18.75% return on spend for the $4,000 of spending to get that bonus. But if you redeem for travel by transferring those 75,000 Citi points, then you might actually be able to get closer to 2 cents per point for $1,500 of value instead. That would make the return on spend here more like 37.5%. However, the problem that most people run into is they don't really know exactly exactly how to even begin redeeming points like this, and that is going to lead me to step number 2 in this whole system of winning the credit card game, and that is going to be to follow the 80-20 redemption rule. Now, this rule is based on something called the Pareto principle, which basically says that 80% of all the outputs from something result from 20% of the inputs, or in other words, there's usually just one small thing that really kind of drives the majority of the results in a system, and this rule can be applied to almost anything in business or in life. So for example, 80% of a business's revenue might be coming from only 20% of its clients that might be its top VIP customers, and so once the business has identified what the top 20% of its customers are, then they're just going to throw a lot of their time and attention at those customers in order to grow their business. Now, for us here in this video, the reason why most people struggle to really win at the credit card game and get all the cool stuff like free travel is just sort of because they're not focusing on the right 20% of the inputs that are going to determine 80% of the outputs in the credit card game. So they might be focusing too much on earning more points, getting more credit cards, or researching other tricks around the earning side of things. However, the real secret here is to focus the majority of your time and attention on learning the whole redemption side of the game, because that is really what's going to be the input here that is going to determine around 80% of your success. Now, there's a lot of stuff to learn when it comes to redeeming points, so you really do have to kind of make a commitment to learning, and then you also have to actually enjoy this stuff because it is kind of like solving a puzzle, which is also what makes the credit card game fun. But if you want to get a head start on learning how to solve this credit card puzzle with redeeming points, what I did was I made a free 7-day email course you can go ahead and sign up for with the link down below. Again, that course is completely free along with all the other content here on this YouTube channel, because I really just want to get more people out there on board with experiencing all that I've been able to experience with credit cards and with travel, because I could say that it's completely changed my life. Now, one tip that I want to focus on from that email course that can help you to sort of get a head start on fully understanding the whole redemption side of things within the credit card game is going to be how to calculate cent per point value. Cent per point value is essentially how we're going to be able to determine what's a good use of redeeming our credit card points and what's not. And the formula for cent per point, or CPP, is the cash price of a certain flight or hotel stay minus any taxes and fees associated with booking that travel using points, divided by the total amount of points required to book it, and then multiplied by 100 to move the decimal place. So for example, if you wanted to fly from Philadelphia down to Dallas on American Airlines, then it might cost you $241 in cash, or if you found an award seat through Alaska Airlines to book the same exact American flight using Alaska miles, then you'd only have to pay $19 along with 7,500 miles. To calculate the cent per point value on that, we would take the cash price of $241 and subtract the taxes and fees of the award ticket, which was $19, and that's because the difference between those two amounts is going to be the money that we're saving here, and then we would divide that by the 7,500 miles or points it takes to book that award seat, and then multiply by 100 to move the decimal place, and that is going to give us a value of 2.96 cents per point, which is great because anything around 2 cents per point or above is what we want to aim for. Now, if you don't have Alaska Airlines miles to book that, then there is also going to be a few other ways to transfer over to Alaska from some of those flexible points currencies I talked about before, and if all that sounds very confusing, then don't worry, because again, we are going to cover a lot of that stuff in the free 7-day email course I linked to down below, so definitely go ahead and check that out. Now, redeeming points for travel is great because it obviously is going to give you a lot of value, but if you really want to win the credit card game, then you also have to make sure your credit cards are not draining value out of your pocket at the same time. So the next step here to win the credit card game is going to be to have a long-term plan for each card you get. The truth is that anyone can justify getting pretty much any credit card out there for the first year of having it, because you are going to be able to get a sign-up bonus in year 1 that more than offsets basically any annual fee that you might have to pay at first. But in year 2 and beyond, with certain premium credit cards, that sign-up bonus is going to be gone, and now you have to make sure that the annual benefits of that credit card are still going to be greater than whatever the annual cost is, so that way you're not losing money. So to help with this, I have 3 tips to think about. Tip number 1 is that you want to make sure you calculate what's called your effective annual fee on any premium credit card that costs money to hold, but also might have some credits that help to offset that annual fee. So for example, the Amex Gold card costs $325 per year, but it also comes with $120 in Uber credits, $120 in dining credits with select partners, $100 in credits for restaurants that are part of Resi, and $84 of Dunkin' credits for a total of potentially $424 in value that you can get back every single year. Now, the true value of those credits is going to be very subjective, and it really kind of depends on whether or not you already spend money on the products and services covered by those credits, but assuming that you do get the full value from the $424 in credits, then that effectively reduces your annual fee of $325 $95 down to minus $99, which makes it like Amex is basically paying you to have this card. Now, honestly, for most people, I don't really think you're going to be able to get the full value out of every single credit here on the gold card, which I explained in more detail in another video I'll link to down below. But the point here is to calculate your effective annual fee on every single credit card you have before you get it. That way you're not going to be losing money on annual fees in the long run on cards that don't truly bring you value. Tip number 2 goes along with that, which is to evaluate your benefits and then compare that to your effective annual fee as well. And that's because sometimes you might not be able to fully offset your annual fee on a certain credit card, but the other benefits that are there on that card might still make it worth having. A perfect example of this is the Chase Sapphire Reserve card, which has a $550 annual fee and then comes with $300 of annual travel credits that are super easy to use. And so those travel credits are going to bring down the effective annual fee on this card for almost anyone to $250 per year. That's the way this card works out for me because I have it as well. And so the reason that I could justify paying that effective $250 annual fee is mainly going to be from airport lounge access, because this card gets me into Chase Sapphire lounges as well as Priority Pass lounges. And now I've got a massive 20,000 square foot Sapphire lounge that just opened in my home airport of Philadelphia that I know I'm going to be visiting a lot. That brings me value personally, and I'll gladly pay effectively $250 as a net out-of-pocket cost to have this card every year. But not everyone is going to agree with that airport lounges are worth it, and that's okay. So just go ahead and check out what other benefits certain cards offer you when deciding if it's a good long-term card to hold. Maybe you get status with a certain hotel chain or an airline. Maybe you get primary auto rental coverage for renting cars. Maybe you get a cell phone protection benefit instead of paying for that separately. Or maybe there's just going to be really good travel protections that give you good peace of mind when you're out there traveling. Whatever it might be, just compare those benefits to the effective annual fee on each credit card you have, and then decide if the benefits are still going to outweigh that cost. However, even if you do have a credit card that makes sense right now, things could absolutely change in the future because issuers are known for always increasing their annual fees and devaluing benefits. So tip number 3 here is to also be planning for the long term by having a plan B for each credit card you get. Typically, plan B involves either canceling a credit card or doing what's called a product change, where you might be able to go and downgrade a card that has an annual fee to another card from the same issuer that does not have an annual fee. Each credit card and each issuer is going to be different with their rules on downgrading, so you really have to kind of go out there and do some research and dig around on Reddit and some other websites to see what people are saying. But what I like to do before getting any credit card is just understand, okay, what are my options down the road if things change, because I don't want to be paying for a credit card that doesn't bring me value over the long run. Now, if downgrading is not going to be an option, then canceling a credit card is not the end of the world, because I've canceled cards before when they no longer make sense to have. But the important thing with canceling a credit card is just to understand what kind of impact that might have on your credit score. If you only have like 3 cards and 2 of them have annual fees and your credit history is maybe only a few years old, and you're also planning to take out a loan in the near future, then canceling might not be the best idea at the moment. But if you've got a long credit history and you have many credit accounts, then the impact of canceling a single credit card is honestly going to be pretty minimal. So again, this is really going to affect everyone differently, and you have to go and take a good look at your own personal situation. Also, before you cancel any credit card with an annual fee, always go out and check with customer service and ask if there's any retention offers available, because sometimes that issuer might be willing to pay you just a little bit extra to keep you as a customer. And not every credit card is going to always have retention offers available, but like anything, it never hurts to ask. Now, next here, step number 4 to winning the credit card game is to avoid what I call the spending trap that I see too many people fall for when they're using credit cards. This one honestly sounds so basic that you might not even care to hear me talk about it, but I promise you this is going to be the most important part of this video, so you have to pay attention to what I'm about to say. The truth is, there's people out there who are diehard Dave Ramsey followers who absolutely hate credit cards and they only use cash and debit cards to pay for things. And there's some of those people out there who are actually putting more value back into their pockets every year from debit card use compared to other people out there who use credit cards with the best sign-up bonuses and the best multipliers. The reason why some of those debit card users are beating certain credit card users is just because they might be a little bit better at avoiding the spending trap, and that's because certain credit card users are prone to overspending just to hit minimum spend requirements for bonuses. They might be buying more than what they need just because they're focusing too much on earning more points versus spending a little bit less within their means. And so overall, people can be just a little bit careless with their credit card use, and you have to be careful here. The best debit card users are able to effectively have a savings rate from their spending that exceeds the careless credit card users out there who fall for the spending trap. So it doesn't matter how optimized your credit card setup is. If you're overpaying for annual fees and you find yourself overspending because you aren't tracking your finances, percentages, and that's going to mean you're going to have a much higher chance at actually losing the credit card game, even though you might be under the illusion that you're winning it. Now, okay, with that whole speech out of the way, the fifth step next here to win the credit card game is going to be to optimize your credit score. And that's because this is going to be another one of the big benefits to using credit cards versus debit cards, since debit card spending is not building your credit. To me, the most important thing with this is to focus on what I call the big two factors of your credit score, which is going to be payment history that affects around 35% of your score, and then amounts owed, which affects around 30% of your score. With payment history, the goal is to aim for 100% of on-time payments by always paying off your credit cards by the payment due date every single month. And even though you can be on time by just making the minimum payment, you can't really win the whole credit card game if you're paying interest. So you also want to make sure you're paying off the full statement balance on time and in full every month. Missing even one payment can really hurt your credit score and then take a while to recover from. So you really want to make sure you're staying organized with all this stuff, and even set up auto payment if you have to, so that way you don't miss a payment. For the amounts owed factor, the main thing that we really want to think about here when it comes to credit cards is called credit utilization. And credit utilization is basically a calculation that takes a look at your statement balance on a credit card divided by the credit limit on the card, and then that gives you a percentage. The goal here is to keep that utilization percentage below 10%, but ideally in the low single digit range in order to have the most positive effect on optimizing your score. And you want to be paying attention to credit utilization on both an individual basis on each credit card you have, but also on a combined basis across all your cards. Now, those are just the basics of those big two factors that make up about 2/3 of your credit score, but the truth is there's going to be a whole lot more that goes into those factors, as well as 3 other factors that also impact your credit score. So in order to truly win the credit card game by having an excellent credit score that's up around the 800 level, you want to make sure you follow every single thing I talked about in another video in much more detail that I'll link over here on the screen next that you should definitely go ahead and check out. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you over in that video.